Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Grace Orsena, and today we will discuss how to create a lesson plan focusing on the geometric definitions of parallel and perpendicular lines using the Matatag curriculum approach. As educators, we aim to design lessons that are structured, engaging, and aligned with the Matatag curriculum, ensuring that students grasp mathematical concepts effectively. Before we proceed with the lesson plan structure, let's first understand the key components of the Matatag framework, starting with curriculum content, standards, and learning competencies. So the content is identifying parallel and perpendicular. According to Matatag curriculum, students are expected to demonstrate understanding of the concepts of parallel and perpendicular lines, angle, triangles, and quadrilaterals. However, for today's lesson, we will focus specifically on parallel and perpendicular lines. The performance standards describe what students should be able to do after learning the topic. Instead of just defining or identifying parallel and perpendicular lines, students are expected to construct and describe them in various designs, drawings, and models. Our goal is to ensure that students understand, describe, and illustrate parallel and perpendicular lines both conceptually and visually. By the end of this lesson, students should be able to describe the characteristic of parallel and perpendicular lines and illustrate parallel and perpendicular lines using drawings and real-world examples. Let's move on to the second part of the lesson plan, learning resources. These materials will serve as our guide in delivering an effective and engaging lesson on parallel and perpendicular lines. To ensure a well-structured discussion, we will be using the following references. Teacher's Guide, pages 205 to 208, and then the learner's materials pages 156 to 157. These materials provide clear explanations, guided exercises, and illustrations to help students grasp the concept of parallel and perpendicular lines effectively. Here's the other learning resources, illustrations of different kinds of lines, ray, line segment and point, pencil pens, manila papers, and meta cards. Now, let's have the third part of our lesson plan, which is procedures. The procedure section outlines the step by step activities that will help students meet the learning objectives. This part will guide us in engaging the students, helping them understand the concepts, and assessing their learning along the way. In the procedures sections, we will start a brief review to refresh prior knowledge. We will do a quick review using a fun guessing game to refresh everyone's memory and get them engaged. Here's the game mechanics. First, students take turns reading a riddle while a song plays. Second, when the song stops, players can answer. Then, correct answers earn points. Lastly, the student with the most points wins. The correct answer is point. The correct answer is line. It is line segment. It is the answer is ray. So let's establish a purpose of the new lesson. Now that we've done a quick review and warm up, let's establish the purpose of today's lesson with another interactive activity. This will help students understand the importance of learning about parallel and perpendicular lines and set the context for the new topic. For this activity, I need you to pay close attention to how we are forming different types of lines. We'll play the forming lines game, and as we do, we'll use it to help introduce our topic. So, example, all those whose birth month is June will form two straight lines. And then those wearing t-shirt will form two lines that may met at the center. To the students forming the parallel lines, you can ask, what do you notice about the distance between the two lines? Do they ever meet? What kind of lines did you form? So, to the students forming the perpendicular lines, you can ask, what happens when the two lines met? What kind of angle is created? How would you describe these lines? Now, let's move on to the next part of our lesson, introducing key vocabulary and presenting examples of parallel and perpendicular lines. We will do this by looking at some real life examples through pictures. To help us understand parallel and perpendicular lines, we will look at some real life examples. I'll show you pictures, and as we go through them, we will learn the vocabulary related to these lines. Look at the image of the boy holding two sticks. The two sticks are held parallel to each other. They are aligned in the same direction and will never meet. The boy is holding the sticks so that they are parallel lines, meaning they run in the same direction and are equally spaced. Let's look at the structure of a hammer. The handle and head of the hammer are perpendicular to each other, forming a right angle where they meet. The main part of our lesson is the lesson proper, where we will define and explain parallel and perpendicular lines in detail. So when we say parallel lines, go in exactly the same direction. They always have the same distance between them and never meet at any point at all. Example, the road, pedestrian crossing, and railway tracks. Parallel lines can take different forms. They can be diagonal, horizontal, or vertical. As long as the lines remain the same distance apart and never intersect, they are parallel, no matter their orientation. Perpendicular lines are defined as two lines that meet or intersect each other at right angles or 90 degrees. These lines can be found when we cut a square-shaped sandwich from side to side. So example here is capital letter L and basketball court. Perpendicular lines can be like a cross or an X form. Now that we define and explain parallel and perpendicular lines, it's time to give you a chance to practice the new concept and apply what we've learned so far. So the students will open their book on page 156 as their seat work activity. To develop the mastery of the students, we will be having the naming lines game. What do you call of these lines? Correct. The answer is parallel lines. How about this one? The answer is perpendicular lines. Lastly, what is this? Okay, so the answer is parallel lines. For the generalization, let's answer these two questions. First, what are the different kinds of lines? Next, how do these lines differ from each other? For the evaluation, please scan the QR code. Thank you. That's all for today.